This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Welcome to the Fee for Service Dentist Podcast, Dr. Sonny Spiro. Today's guest, Dr. Chase Williams. What a phenomenal human being. Great story. Talk about someone comfortable in their own skin and knowing exactly who they are and what they want to be. I just loved it. I could have talked to him for weeks. And we will have him back on, I'm sure, because it's just a great guest. As always, Fee for Service Dentist Podcast brought to you by Kettenbach Dental. They are proud and excited to announce the first major advancement in fluoride varnish treatments called Profacil. No longer with alcohol or resin. Instead, it's using a mucoadhesive dimethicone gel. It leaves a smooth, silky, lubricious feel with no grit. Patients will love it. Contact Kettenbach today for more details and do more varnishes that patients will appreciate. Call 877-532-2123 or visit KettenbachUSA.com. Please like the show if you watch it or listen to it on your favorite podcast area or YouTube. Click like, click subscribe, share it with your friends, do all those great things. Help us grow, help us bring this to more people. Great stories about great folks in our wonderful profession. If you don't like it or something you want to see different, or if you want to come on, hit me up directly, sonnyspira@gmail.com, Sonny with an O, or my cell phone is 607-624-2962. Shoot me a text, whatever. Let's get you on. Enjoy the show, folks. Take care.
My name is Drew Burns, and I'm a part of a small group of dentists who believe something crazy. We believe that the standard of care is just not good enough. We demand the best of ourselves and the best for our patients. We believe that the best way? No, the only way to practice dentistry is on our own terms. If you ask the dental consultants or the corporate CEOs, they tell you that what we're doing isn't smart, that fee-for-service dentistry is dead, and that the golden age of dentistry is over. Yet, while others focus on profits first, we focus on the patient first. And yet our offices are some of the most profitable in the entire country because we invest in ourselves and we are doing things right. It's our name on the door and it's our reputation on the line. My name is Drew Burns and I am a fee-for-service dentist. This is the Fee-for-Service Dentist Podcast and these are our stories.
Welcome to the Fee-for-Service Dentist Podcast, Dr. Sonny Spiro. Today we have a new guest, Dr. Chase Williams. And I hit him up on Facebook. I was like, hey, you got a pretty cool story here, man. You want to tell it? And he was gracious enough to accept. Let me give you a little bit of his background first. Then we'll get to know him and then we'll get to see what he's got going on. Dr. Chase Williams graduated for UMKC, University of Missouri at Kansas City, I think. Right?
You got it. Yep.
School of Dentistry in 2018. He opened his scratch fee-for-service startup, Tooth and Company, in October of 2023. And I got to tell you, it is a cool, slick looking logo, man. That is
Thanks.
Really cool. I've never seen it. That's just like, it's a throwback. It's kind of, it's really cool.
Thank you.
Like, you do that yourself?
No, I hired it. It's 99 Design. So you throw a pot of money in, and then all these designers all over the world compete for the money. And it was like
cool,
$1,000, and I was blown away with what we ended up with. I was super happy.
Cool is that? I've never heard of that. It's so cool.
Yeah.
All right, this is gonna be a fun one. So in October 2023 opens up his startup. And I graduated in 2018, startup in 2023. Focuses on offering comprehensive and functional dentistry in a relaxing, no-rush environment. He focuses on using the best technology and materials available, has a full in-house lab with a mill and 3D printers to leverage the technology to control the design, process, and lower overhead. He enjoys spending time with his wife and 3 young children, as we found out prior to the show. Working out, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Oh boy, I'm gonna mess with you, man. Playing nerdy board games or Dungeons and Dragons. So that's quite Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or nerdy board game. That's kind of a nice dichotomy, but
yeah.
Welcome, Chase. Glad you're on the show. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you having me.
Oh man, thanks for accepting the offer. So tell me since we hit on it, tell me a little more about the logo story. Like, did you have in mind what you wanted to do?
In a way. So this, when I came up with this concept of Tooth and Co, how I wanted to structure my practice, I came up with this really cheesy tagline of old school hospitality and new school dentistry. So when I was creating this design contest, I said I kind of wanted this like throwback, think of, 50, 60 years ago, the dentist with the shingle, real something simple that would kind of stand out and kind of pay homage to that old school vibe.
Yeah, it looks like the tooth powder box, like like almost an Arm and Hammer kind of,
Uh-huh.
or like a mining town. Just yeah, like what you would see in those really old black and white newspaper
Yeah.
ads and stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly what we were trying to go for, because a lot of people nowadays feel like they're in this mill when they're a patient.
Right.
I felt that way. My family's felt that way in medicine. So we're trying to like dial it back and do the old school, I'm going to be your dentist. That's a solo doc practice. And I want to treat these people from babies till I hang up the handpiece. So just trying to pay homage to that whole old school scene.
So listen, so I love it. So what's are you a Gen Z? What gen are you? Do you have any idea?
I'm a millennial. I'm 35.
You're a millennial. You're my son's age. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, millennial. That's what it's called. When does the gens come in? Never mind.
I don't know. I don't. My wife and I were talking about it gets blended real quick.
Yeah.
It gets confusing.
Drives me crazy. I help coach in the spring. I help coach a baseball team, JV high school, and to see these kids, and it's really cool. We had a situation, and we're warming up. Kids are warming up. They're playing catch. It's practice. On the field, like 7 fields away, is this lacrosse game, and it's kind of evening, and all of a sudden they start playing the Star Spangled Banner, and I don't hear the gloves popping anymore. I look back over my shoulder, they're all standing, hats off, at attention over their heart. I was like,
That's cool.
right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Unsolicited, no pressure, did it all themselves. And I'm like, everybody judges these generations like, you don't understand, I don't think the kids have changed that much,
No, probably not. Yeah, that's a cool story. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I tell you, the logo and what you want to do, right? It seems like you have would you say you're a real good global picture, big picture guy?
I feel like I have ideas and I just kind of go for it. I didn't research or anything as probably much as I should have. I just felt like this made sense, and I'm just gonna grind and figure it out.
but I mean, just talking the short bit right now, it just seems like you're pretty comfortable who you are, and then what you want to be, right? This is who we are, and then you want, like you talked about, just your mind talking about the logo development fit what you want and how you want your practice to be and what you want it to look like, smell like, feel like, everything.
Yeah.
So I got to get into where you came up with that whole concept. So let's talk dental school 2018. Did you always know you were going into dentistry? When did dentistry become your thing?
Yeah. So for whatever reason, my dad was a drywall contractor. My mom stayed at home. I just always wanted to be a dentist. My parents thought it was kind of funny. Just, I liked going to the dentist, and I was like, I'm going to be a dentist. I'm going to be a dentist. And then I went to college, originally played football. I broke my neck my freshman year in a car accident. And so then, yeah, it was a pretty wild deal. I was in one of those halo vests for 5 months, and it took me about a year to heal. So after I got done with that, I talked to a lot of doctors, because I was like, well, maybe I'll do something, bigger in a way. And I talked to all these doctors, and they were like, I love what I do, but I have no work-life balance. And family's always been super important. I'm the oldest of 6. We had a great family growing up, and that's something I wanted to mimic. And all these doctors was like, you should think about becoming a dentist. And I was like, oh, that was kind of plan A. Then I talked to dentists, and then they were like, I love my job. I get to help people. I get to work with my hands, be creative, all these things. So that kind of just solidified my path. My plan A kind of veered off for a second, but got redirected right back to it.
Yeah, it just kind of, so far, not knowing you, listen, it kind of fits your personality. So tell me, So your dad worked with his hands. He's a drywall contractor. Was he
Mhm.
independent? Was he in his own business?
Yes, he was. So I mean,
That's
we grew up
cool.
when we were really little, he worked for someone and then kind of slowly became his own boss. And now he's done super well for himself and getting to live in, probably like second, fourth grade is when he opened the business and things started taking off. So I remember the difference of before and after.
Uh-huh.
And that was always a big motivating factor. I mean, it was a non-negotiable. I was going to own my practice at one point,
Right.
but
I was
you
gonna
know,
say he started, he learned the business, then he set his own business, sort of like a guy who started from scratch in 2023, right? So
yep.
that's a great story. Now, did you guys talk like business in the house? Was that common? Like, did your mom help with the books? I mean, were there, how was the dynamic? Because I just find that so much of what we become and learn, we kind of had the early budding stages as a kid.
hmm
So,
Yeah, definitely. So my mom helped with the books exactly like you said. My dad worked, if he got a big check, he wasn't afraid to, or a big stack of cash and be like, hey, if you want to make this kind of money one day, you got to go do something. It's not
uh-huh.
just going to get handed to you. So it was very much a hard work, you
Right.
grind. And in school, he let us like scrap drywall houses and we could hire our buddies for, $10 an hour and make a few $100 on the day. So, he always was trying to leave these little nuggets of hard work, but also work smarter, not harder.
There you go. Now you were one of six, you said, right?
Yeah, oldest is 6. Yep.
So anybody else go into the professions?
Yeah, my brother right under me, 2 years younger, he's a pediatric dentist. And then no, none of the other ones are in the medical field at all. But then I have my one second to youngest brothers kind of working for my dad. Kind of fit. I don't know if my dad's ever going to fully fade out, but he's learning the trade.
There you go. So a little transition plan, right? Little
hmm
exit strategy for your dad.
Definitely,
Kind of
definitely.
cool. All right. So where did you grow up? Did you grow up in Alabama?
I did not. I grew up in Ohio.
Okay.
So as a Midwest kid, I feel like a lot of us want to get to a beach one day. And then my wife's from about an hour north of Kansas City. So that's how I wound up there for dental school and everything. So it was always our dream to eventually get to the coast. And a lot of people don't know. And I didn't know till about 4 years ago that Alabama does have some coast.
Yes, they do. Yes, they
It's
do.
beautiful
LA.
down there.
You're in
Yeah,
LA, Lower Alabama.
that's right.
That's great. Now, are you literally right near the coast where you're practicing?
Yeah, so we're about, if you know where like Gulf Shores or Orange Beach is, we're just about 10, 15 miles north, right along the Mobile Bay. So we're a little bayside community called Fairhope.
Is it like a resort kind of area, or is there a transient population, or do you have like a base,
Yeah,
population?
in our area, it's pretty much people live here. Down in Gulf Shores and Orange Beach, I mean, there's condos all over the place. There's only like 3,000 people live in Orange Beach. So,
Okay.
that's when we were deciding on where to put the practice up. I mean, everyone always thinks, oh, an actual beach town sounds great, but demographic wise, that starts to get a little tricky.
Uh-huh.
And this area, it's called Baldwin County. It's exploding. We have like 600 families moving here every month. So
That's
we found
cool.
the place and loved it, and then slowly found out, well, this is the demographics ended up being really favorable for us.
Okay. So when you graduated dental school, what did you do for those 5 years? What were you up to between
Yeah,
18?
that's a great question. So the vast majority of it, I went to a very rural area as a solo doc in southern Minnesota. So I was
That's the
very,
opposite direction.
yeah, opposite. I got froze out. I love people. All the girls I worked with in that first office took over from a doc that retired, couldn't sell his practice, sold to DSO. And so I came in right out of school, solo doc, middle of nowhere. Our
With
oral
no
surgeon.
with no like no mentoring, you just came right in cold. You're running the place.
Yep, yep.
Wow.
First
Okay.
month.
So here you go. Throw you in the deep end and go swim.
Yep, deep end. A lot of really tough lessons learned that first year, but we lived in this tiny little farming community of about 1,800. It was wonderful. We loved the time there. We still have friends. We have friends come visit. I have a couple of patients that drive all the way or fly all the way down to see me, which is really cool. But yeah, it was a great thing for my dental career because one, I'm just a big believer. Like you just got to get thrown in the deep end and learn how to swim.
Mm-hmm.
Like month one, I think we did like 40 crowns. They were already diagnosed. I walked in from a locum doc that it was like, all right, time to go. And then working for a DSO, I got to get a lot of great free CE. So my whole philosophy was kind of save money, increase my skills was the biggest thing. And then once I had enough money and I had enough skills and felt comfortable with the treatment planning and outcomes and all these things, and I was like, okay, now I'm ready to set sail and build the dream.
Now, how was the compensation? What was the compensation like in that DSO?
It was really good. So I got, after my first 6 months, we quickly became, this DSO owned about 600 offices at the time. And we were, as a solo doc, we were always in the top 10 providers as a solo doc office. I think a lot of it was we were about
Top 10%.
half.
Top 10% out of 600 in some rural spot in Minnesota, right?
Yep. Lowest, poorest county in Minnesota.
Right. I mean, isn't it? I just love, I absolutely love that tale. I mean, I'm in a small community area. We kind of call it small town. It's not that rural, but two of our practices, we have 5. 2 of them are very rural, I think. Like one of them is a one traffic light town,
Yeah, that's small.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean,
I'm,
it's just you can be successful anywhere. So you go to this
absolutely.
place and you have no roots. You're from the Ohio area. You said your wife is from Kansas City, right? When did you guys get married?
We got married 9 years ago. So
Okay.
we were my first year of dental, right before I entered dental school, we got married.
I did it after my first year, but anyway, that's cool. So
yeah.
you guys go through the dental school experience together, and now is she working? What is her situation?
Yeah, so she worked the first 2 years for a healthcare staffing agency, and then we got pregnant with our first, and then the last 3 years of dental school, we actually ran a little side hustle. We would make hand stamped jewelry. We'd take dye stamps and hit it in, put names and stuff. So pretty much 3 weekends a month, we were in the middle of dental school. We were going to craft shows, and I'd make these little things chairside, and it gave us enough money to not take any loans out to live off of. So we still had to take loans to, for tuition, but I didn't have to take any loans to live off of, and we were able to have a great time and do fun stuff. And
how proud was your dad of you when you did that?
Yeah, I mean, I think he thought it was pretty cool that, dental school's hard enough, but
right.
We just, my dad always jokes about just our family being hustlers. So, you just kind of find a need and got to figure it out.
Ain't no doubt about the work ethic, right? So that that myth about millennials not having work ethic is a crock of crap, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like that with every generation. There's going to be folks that are looking for the handout, and then there's other people who are going to make their own way. And
yes,
I love this country. I love the stories, man. So
same.
that is awesome. So you have a so you're in dental school. You're managing a business. You have a wife that's pregnant. Usually, so you're year 2. So year 3, when you really probably got into some heavy clinical. Now you have a child. So now your sleep habits have been changed.
Yes, definitely.
Right. But you still got to graduate. That's a lot on your plate. So you have no problem multitasking and juggling. Fair comment?
No. Yeah, that's very fair. I'm a busy bee, so I like to.
That's great, man.
I like to be going.
Something done, give it to a busy person.
Yeah.
So you go up to southern Minnesota. You're working in this rural community. You're working for the quote evil empire DSO.
Yes.
And you find it to be good. Now, how about the learning curve? How did you learn how to handle 400 crowns? And how did you handle the pressure of the patient care delivery?
Yeah, the first few months was rough, but I could not have asked for a better team to learn from. So all these girls had been there from, the least was a 16-year hygienist that had been there, and the most was my office manager at the time. And she had been there for 30 plus years. So I got put into a well-oiled machine. The retiring doc was phenomenal. He was kind of a pseudo mentor while I lived there.
So he was around.
Yeah, he was around, but he never mentored me dentally, but he more of like how to treat your staff, how
Right.
to treat people.
Coaching.
Yeah, coaching in a way. He's just a great human. And, he did so much extra for his team. And that was something that really carried over to my practice now. And I think is a big component of why we've been so successful so quickly. But these girls, everyone was so invested and they were just happy to have a young doctor who,
Yeah.
was ready to go and wanted to help people. So they were great at holding my hand. My first assistant, I'm trying to take out a tooth and she's just handed me a certain forceps, handed me a certain, elevator. Cause at that point she'd been assistant for 28 years.
Right.
I mean, she knew what tool was needed next. And it was interesting to kind of be humbled and be like, well, I'm the doctor, but you know more dentistry than I do in a way.
Yeah, you didn't let your ego get in the way. And I tell our docs too, young docs that start, listen, I've worked with a lot of these folks here. So you don't have to say, but if you want to, you can certainly take a time out, call the assistant outside. Hey, how would Dr. Spear or Dr. Blanchard handle this? Oh, at this point, usually they have a high speed and they're cutting that tooth. Okay.
Yep.
But you have to have enough understanding. And if you put the patient first, then your ego can step aside because you're
Yes.
going to deliver the care that you ultimately will be proud of, right?
Mm-hmm. Love it.
So that's pretty cool. So now the DSO allowed that practice to continue to operate as it was. When you talk about how the older dentist had dealt with his team, did that stay intact and in place?
So not a lot of it. So he was someone who like contributed a lot of extra money to the retirement accounts and all this. And
Sure.
there's always that honeymoon period where they kind of let things
Yeah.
stay kosher for that 1 or 2 years, but that quickly faded away. Then they were set up on a bonus structure. So I think like when I got there, if we hit $250,000 for the quarter in collections, they got to share a percentage. Well, the DSO always raising that carrot up higher and higher and higher. By the time I left, without hygiene, I was collecting like $1.6 million, and they wanted like $600 of collections a quarter before these girls could get a bonus. So, there is a limit, especially when you're in a rural area, people aren't lining up for all on X surgery or anything.
Right.
You're relying on bread and butter. There's just so many hours and so much production you can pump. And, they kind of wave that carrot right out. So the first like 3 years I was there, we were hitting bonuses every single month. Then they started to raise it to an unrealistic level.
Okay.
So,
Now, everybody remember in this story here, right? Chase broke his neck in college. So, do you find yourself really focusing on your posture in dentistry? Because you're busy, you're humping it, right? You're probably flying along faster than you could have imagined when you started.
mm-hmm.
And you get bad habits when you do that. And I think you got to be very mindful of your talk a little bit about just the physical component here.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, being an athlete when I was younger, growing up, and then playing college football, I mean, lifting and everything's always been a big part of my life. But probably the worst shape I got in was at my first year because I wasn't used to working, trying to balance all these things. I started getting some aching in my back, and I was just kind of a head down and go. This is going to fix itself. And then I started getting shoulder pain, and luckily one of my jiu-jitsu buddies was a cash-based physical therapist, and he really turned me on. And I had a bunch of these little crumbs that kind of led me to like fee for service is the way. He started his practice behind a curtain in a CrossFit gym, and within 3 years he had 4 locations. So, and his whole thing was like, well, with PT up there, he can't even offer what's needed because the insurance has just made it impossible. It's worse than dentistry, sounded like.
PT's bad. It is.
Yeah, PT's bad. So he's like, I have
to
just be cash based. And so then I really started, once he got me all squared away, then I really started focusing on getting back into lifting. I'm a big believer in like strength training. Helps a lot. So, I mean, I do jujitsu 3 or 4 times a week. I try to work out 3 or 4 times a week, and then I do dentistry. So, all these things, and I feel great now. So, I got a cold plunge. I've been cold plunging religiously for the last 3 years. So I'm trying to do all these little things to take care of my body so that the bad posture, because I mean, as much as I'd love to say I try to sit up straight, but there's times we're all guilty. Or it's like, it's going to take me 2 seconds if I lean over and just do it real fast. So
yeah, deal on number 2. God bless you if you can do that.
yeah.
So what was your work schedule like?
When I got to that associateship, it was originally 7 to 6, I think, but every year, Monday through Thursday. And so I got there, I did
like
that
4
for like
10-hour days almost, right?
Yeah, it was rough. So I got there and then I was like, well, this isn't working for me. And so we eventually cut it down from that to 7 to 4 o'clock with a 1 hour lunch. And I lived in town. I lived like 30 minutes or 30 seconds away. So most days for lunch, I could run out, go get my workout for an hour at home, and then come back real quick, which was nice during the work.
All right. So you were working 4 days. So you were working 44 hours because you were doing 11-hour days.
Yeah, originally.
So how long did you do that for?
When we were doing the long hours, I think it only lasted a couple months. And then once we cut it down from that to the 7 to 4 with an hour lunch, I did that for probably 3 years.
And your numbers did what?
We climbed every single quarter.
So let's recapture that now.
Yeah.
44 hours to 32 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge reduction in hours of practice.
Yep.
Right? That's 12 out of 44. I mean, that's 27, 28%, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty serious.
Yeah.
Like,
and that was something that when I was looking at these numbers and these trends, that's something we've implemented in our practice. I only have a 24-hour work week right now, and I produce more than I've ever produced. And so I'm a big efficiency guy. Like when we're there, we're going, but let's work hard and then get out.
Well, you're an athlete too, man. You know how to get right. You can get 8 hours worth done in 6 hours, right?
Yeah, you can, and you can still spend time with people and get great results, and it doesn't have to be nuts.
All right. So if you want to throw some numbers out, I'd appreciate it. So when you went into that practice, what was that practice doing?
We were doing, it was collecting around 800.
Okay. End of the first year when you were there, did you maintain 800?
Yeah, we broke 1 million the first full year I was there because I got there in October. So
first full year, you increased 200,000 on 800, right? So 25% growth in your first year as an associate, coming out, not really knowing which side of your face to shave first, but you're cooking. Yeah. That is so awesome. That's so awesome. Now, that's just amazing. So you stayed there for how many years in that position?
We were 4, a little over 4, but
okay. So, and what was the growth over those 4 years?
So when we ended my last full year there, I collected 1.6 in my chairs, and then hygiene collected. We were almost at 2 million. We were like 1.85.
You went from 800 to 1.85 in 4 years.
Yeah.
Folks, man, it's doable. That's the bottom.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
And in the middle of nowhere, Minnesota, or the middle of resort or nice coast area, now it's all doable. It doesn't matter on your location if you have the right philosophy, and if you're starting to not figure it out, the right focus on what you want to do, right?
Yep.
So talk about the CE. What did you want to be when you grew up in dentistry? What was things you wanted to focus on?
Yeah. So when I started out, one of my grandpa's best buddies is an oral surgeon. So I was like, oh, maybe oral surgery will be fun. Then I entered dental school and watched what they were doing. I was like, oh, I don't know about that. Then I was not an A+ student by any means. I was a kind of a C, gets degrees.
You got grit though, man. You got grit.
Yeah, we grinded through. Yeah. I went to a smaller, Division II state school in Missouri, which,
So you were Division II. So were you on scholarship athlete then for football?
So I was half and half football, half academic, and then broke my neck, and then I ended up with a half scholarship for my academics. School undergrad was cheap, luckily, and smaller class sizes. So that's something I always tell people that are going into dentistry. I'm like, choose wisely, because if I was competing, just realistic, at a big state school, and there was 600 kids in my organic chemistry class versus 30 kids in my organic chemistry class, how would I have fared? So I had almost a 4.0 out of undergrad, but then dental school, was a
Right.
big change for me. So
Right, but you also weren't going to be saddled with a big, a big heavy load on your back of debt.
correct.
You
Yeah.
made that real clear,
Yeah. Yeah. We were trying to get out as thin as we could.
Yeah, and I think that goes a long way. That's just good business. That if you think about it, you were running a business,
Yeah.
and the business of me being a dentist without having my license is reality, and you
Hmm.
did it efficiently. So I wouldn't be shocked if you're going to tell me in your practice now your overhead's less than 50%, probably.
Yeah, it's way under.
I freaking love it. I love it. Oh God, this is awesome. Okay, so what were the skills that you wanted to get in practice from that CE that the DSO was generous to get you going?
Yeah, so big one was implants. I got very comfortable with surgery very fast. My periodontist was always booked out 6 to 8 months. My oral surgeon was booked out 6 to 8 months. And when I got out of school, they were like, you cannot refer every hard extraction to us. Like, if just try to get it out. If you break it and you get stuck, call us and we will fit them in that day. You have to learn, because we were in the middle of nowhere, which was great. My periodontist came and showed me how to do bone grafting. He brought a bunch of stuff over and he's like, you do the home runs, I'll do the hard ones.
Yes.
So it was a great area and taught me a
That's
lot
a great
about
reality check, because
yeah,
that is
yeah,
not
it's
normal.
yeah, it's great. So that's another thing with these smaller communities where there's not so much contention between the dentists. It's more this, like, so many times we see this scarcity mindset instead of like, let's work together and grow. And, I have this specialty, I have this niche. Like, don't be afraid to send a patient over. I won't be afraid to send a patient over, but it's so hard because we were like, no, you're my patient. Like,
Right.
I don't want to let you go. So I saw the implants was definitely going to be a thing, a big money maker. I was comfortable with surgery. So we were able to do quite a few implants. I didn't have a CBCT, but a town over, the orthodontist was a great guy, and he let me send patients over and take CBCTs for free. Then another thing was just cosmetics. So I love doing smile makeovers. Did quite a few full mouth rehabs. The old doc didn't really believe in putting anyone into an occlusal guard ever. So he had a lot of
Sure.
extreme wear patients.
Now,
So.
what kind of educate? Do you take curriculums in that? What did you do to get to that point where you're comfortable?
No, I've been kind of just like a dabble everywhere. So I don't like to base a flag in one camp. I like to kind of pick and choose, because
Yeah.
obviously all these things work.
You don't have to
In
drink
my
the
mind.
Kool-Aid.
Yeah. So that's what I've been kind of dabbling all over the place. So, but not drinking all the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, there's a certain arrogance that goes with that too, right? Like, this is the way we do it. I'm a disciple of this,
Yep.
my feeling is like, okay, that's great, but please don't tell me that everything else is wrong. Please
Exactly.
don't like insult me with this is the only way, and what you're doing is inferior to me.
Yes.
I got a problem with that.
I'm with you 100%. That bugs me as well.
I think what it does, right? It creates a tremendous dependency, and you have now become their student for life, and you're going to be, a money payer to them forever.
100% agree.
I like independence. I still like
I'm
it.
with you.
All right. So, at what point in the process did you say to yourself, "It's time for this ship to get out of the harbor"? When did you decide that you're going to do that?
Well, it was the year my wife finally said, I'm tired of the cold. I'm taking the kids to the beach and you can come if you want. So, because it was originally going to be like 2 years, but with the area being so rural and us doing so well, I renegotiated after the first year, and I was getting 38% with no lab fee. So it was like, and that included Invisalign, implants. I wasn't paying a penny for anything.
You're crushing it.
Yeah, so we were
Can you imagine
money.
what they're pulling in if they're allowing you to have that deal?
Exactly. Yeah. So there was, I had no, and I tell everyone that's with the DSO and killing it, I was like, you have way more leverage than you think. Like, ask for it, because
Well, probably you had more leverage because you're in a less demand area.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Because I knew
you're
it was going to take
Minneapolis. There's probably
100%. There is that caveat. I will agree. So, when
yeah,
you're rural,
so 38%, you said 1.6 million. So you're making bank, man. And are you still living a little bit frugally, like saving for the rainy day? What's your long-term strategy? At what point?
Yes.
Because you're a planner and you're a big picture guy. I'm telling you, I know you are. So how are you planning that whole move?
Yeah, so both my wife and I grew up without a lot of extravagant things. So
Sure.
we had like a $250,000 little house. It was one of the nicer houses in that town. So we lived well within our means. We were honestly just stacking cash.
Right.
We're saving money, but quickly realized when you're a W-2 employee, Minnesota has one of the highest state income taxes. Those big checks don't look so good after Uncle Sam gets a hold of them.
I live in New York. Trust me, I know all about
Yeah,
it.
so that was another factor of like, I started looking at this on paper. I said I could work half as hard, make half the amount of money, work for myself, and bring the same amount home. And that was a very big factor.
And have an asset.
Yeah, and have an asset. So that was one of the big factors of not only was it just time for our family to move, our kids were getting older. Minnesota's tough because it's hard to go outside for like 6 months out of the year with little ones to do anything but go from your garage to somewhere, sprint inside, try to stay warm. So yeah, it was just time for us to go. We had enough money in the bank to do so. So we transitioned down here. I thought I was going to be able to open a practice, in 6 months, but it took over a year. So I moved from a great associateship to another good one, but the dentistry, it was just wasn't completely the same as what I was used to. So I ended up working, I felt twice as hard and making half the amount of money in my associateship for the year when I moved down here while I was opening my practice.
Now, what was the location like where you were an associate in relationship to where you were building?
It's only about 6 miles away, but
They were okay with that?
Yeah, so he was kind of desperate and I was desperate because I came down and was going to work for this guy who had a small DSO. I was supposed to be the main like implant guy for 6 other doctors.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was not anything near what was described. So I quickly pulled out of that and luckily found a guy who I'm great friends with now, who I worked with for a year. But very different demographics. It's more of a rural area. We're this more like little it's a pretty well-to-do area where we live now. Average house is probably 500 grand to get into something decent size, but over where I was, you could still get into a house for $200,000. So
okay,
even though it's very close, it's very different.
Okay. All right. So you moved, and where are you at with the plans for what you want to do? Like, are you set? And how did you find the location that you wanted to put your practice in? Well, what did you do? What research did you do?
That's great. So I used a consulting firm, which was the biggest waste of money I could have ever spent. So they got a hold of me before, and when I was in Minnesota, I was making so much money and it just didn't seem like a lot of money at the time. It's like, oh, well, they're going to take care of it all for me, when really they were kind of on the sideline, like kind of guiding me, but I'm like, what am I paying you for was the real thing. So all they really did was introduce me to people that I was going to get introduced to anyway, is what I found out. And I had a great real estate agent who's in the healthcare real estate space. So we started looking at different areas. Most everything in our town is $10,000 to $12,000 per month, and I didn't like the sounds of that. So
being commercial rental,
being commercial,
Okay.
So my whole goal when opening
10 to 12,000 per month. What's the square footage? What's something like that look like?
Like 2,500 to 3,000, something around there.
Ooh, that's a high number for that. Yeah, that's a high number.
Yeah, our little area, it's a town of 25,000, but it's just this very like Southern charm, quaint. The downtown's like everyone's anti-corporate, everything. Still mom and pop jewelry shops that are thriving. It's just a cool little spot. So it's just expensive to do business here. But luckily we kept looking and looking, and then I found this little spot for $3,000 a month, but there was no tenant improvements or anything like that offered. And it has 2,200 square foot on the main floor. Then upstairs, there's another 400 square foot that he threw in for free. So I just saw that $3,000 number. It's on a quiet little street heading into a very nice nursing home, assisted living area.
Sure.
And I was like, this is the one. So we got that and gutted it and turned it into the practice.
So you don't own it then, you're renting.
I'm renting. Yeah.
Got plans to buy it?
Maybe the other unit next to it, when it comes up for their lease to renew, the owner said he's probably going to try to sell it. At that point, I would probably try to buy it with how things are going currently.
I don't know much, but buy it. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah. That's my goal.
It doesn't matter if there's someone next to you, but once you have full control over it, just like you have full control over your life, it's kind of nice.
Yeah, that's the game plan.
Yeah, it's worth it. And again, it's an asset, and you're going to have deductions. You know, if you play the the tax game.
Oh yeah,
do well with ownership versus just renting. Okay, so how did you focus on that particular town and community? Like, what were the factors that you said, this is where I want to set up my practice? Did you do demographic studies? Did you look at number of dentists? I mean, what did you do? In relationship to that, talk to me like I'm a guy. I'm going to set up somewhere. What would your advice be? How'd you do it?
Yeah, so I probably am not the guy to take advice from, because I did the demographics after we chose the city. So as silly as it is, my wife and I, we just started driving through all these little towns because we knew we wanted to live in Lower Alabama. So we just started driving through towns. And then my wife calls me. She goes, I know where we're moving. And I was like, well, how? She said, I just drove through this little town, and the downtown area is just bustling. It's thriving. This is it. I feel good. So I was like, all right, well, I met up with her, went to the downtown. I was like, sweet, this is it. And we put a couple offers on a couple houses and said, this is it. We're going to throw the dart. We're just going to do it. Then looking at demographics, they were okay. I think there was about 1,800 people to a dentist. So not terrible, not great. But I know there's so much growth happening in this area, and there's no one doing anything like I was doing. Everyone here is doing your insurance-based type dentistry. So I had this vision that if we do what we needed to do, it was going to thrive. It would just be a matter of time. So I was prepared. If it took a year to get going, that was fine. But we were just going to hold true to what we were going to do, and it was going to work out.
What is the primary employers in that area? Like, what do most people do for a living down there?
So there's a ton of entrepreneurs. So there's not a whole lot of actual industry inside of our town. So 20 years ago, it was all farmland. So there's no like big plant. I mean, you have Mobile, which is 30 minutes away, but there's just a ton of entrepreneurs. Like a lot of people I talk to just own a small business or something along those lines.
Okay. That's interesting. And now you have this. Were you aware that it was a growing area when you got there?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's just there's subdivision after subdivision going up, and they had when we bought our house, they actually put a pause on like the growth throughout the entire town for 2 years to let infrastructure catch up because it was growing.
How about like the schools and then the support and the hospitals and the community? Felt comfortable with that?
Yep. Everywhere down here, it is a healthcare desert because so many people are moving in. So everyone's booked out. I have found out after living here for 2 years.
When you came in, what was I guarantee there was no welcoming committee from the dentist, but what was the general, like, okay, here I am, I'm going to hang the shingle in 2023. What was the general community like? Accepting, not accepting? What was the dental community like?
It was, I'd say neither. I didn't really have, outside of some specialists that I had been referring to for the previous year at my associateship.
So just really indifferent? They didn't.
Yeah, just very indifferent.
But they're busy. What you're saying, they're very busy.
Yeah, everyone's busy. I mean, we've had 3 other practices open up within 2 miles of me since I opened my practice 7 months ago. So not taking over somebody, just set up like what you did. We had one guy, a guy went out of business, and then the guy bought that building, so didn't buy the patients out. We had then 2 other just new practices set up.
Wow.
One expanded another practice, and then another one moved from.
It's like their third location. Base when you start, but you didn't. So what do you do to start your practice? How do you get the word out? How do you get people know who you are, where you are, what you are? What do you do? What's your marketing plan?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. So we I got with a marketing company, and we really just pumped on Facebook because for whatever reason, our ad spend is super cheap down here. It's like 7 cents a view. So we just started dumping like $1,000 a month into Facebook marketing just to get our name out there. We created, as we were opening, we are trying to create like fun videos and things like that to get a call list. And, I was going on there and just kind of preaching what we were going to offer, this, more comprehensive care, going to spend time with you one-on-one. You're not going to be ran through. We take pride in our work. Then that call list, I think we had 150-ish people ready to call on day one.
Okay, so what's the construction look like? Wait, hold on. You moved there and then started construction when you were physically in that town, right?
Correct.
Okay, so what does the construction look like? How do you hire contractors? How do you get, a feeling of who's reputable, et cetera? How'd you do all that? Especially in an area growing that much, it's probably hard to get good contractors.
It is. So luckily, one of my, which now best buddies down here, he is an endodontist and started his practice like 8 months ahead of me. So he had already done a lot, and he is a by the book. He does all the research on everything kind of guy. So I got to walk in, and one of the guys I put a bid on, I got to go see my buddy's practice that they just built, and it was beautiful. He had no complaints. And we have a lot of just good, hardworking people down here. Just a lot of kind of old school. Shake your hand. I'm going to do a good job, and they do. So construction was seamless.
What was your budget? Now you're renovating 2,200 square feet, or you're also 400 upstairs, or how much are you renovating?
So the upstairs, we pushed a couple walls around, nothing major. Downstairs, we completely stripped everything. I had no TI. So it was about $400,000 just for the build out itself. And
that's no equipment yet, right?
There's no equipment. So I got a loan.
$400,000 on a 2,200 square foot, right? That's $2,000 a foot, right?
Yeah, it was an expensive build out. So, and that was the other thing. There's not a lot of companies that do this, but I wanted someone who was familiar with building dental offices, and there was really two. And I wasn't going to mess around. I mean, my dad's a contractor, so I know how the game works. So, you don't know who your subs are going to be or anything, but these guys kind of handled everything. So I knew they were going to do a good job.
Who did your design layout for the dentistry? Like who worked with you on determining treatment areas, treatment room size, reception area, sterile area, CVCT, all that stuff? So the consultants that I used, they had a floor plan designer that worked with them. That is one thing I will say that was good. We took that, and then I did my equipment through Benco. So we took that original plan, and then we fine tuned it at Benco's showroom and everything to kind of get everything dialed in. You could have. I've done so many of these different things. Yeah, you could do in retrospect now, if you had to do another one, you could just start penciling things and go to Benco and sit with them and just start moving things around,
Yep. That was another thing I realized I was paying twice for. So
okay, so now is that inherent in the $400,000 cost, or is that additional cost to do all the design?
So that was that my consulting fee is something I paid for all out of pocket. So that was separate.
Okay.
It was about
$70,000. Also included the floor plan.
It did. Yeah, it did.
Now you got to bring in and you got to hire people for the installation, and you got to buy equipment, right? So what that budget look like? And then how many rooms did you set up? 3, 4?
So we set up 3 to start. So, and then we spent, I think on my budget for the bank was like 180,000. But I ended up spending about $200,000, about probably more like 240 of my own money to get all the tech that I wanted into the practice. So we
got it. I mean, if that's what you want it to look like, you got to do it. I mean, think about it. Pay that over 10 years, right? What's that? It's a couple $100.
Yep.
You know, the overages. I mean, but it allows you to practice exactly how you want to, and anything less would be compromise, and you're not
exactly. So
you want your patients to compromise.
Exactly. That's we wanted the practice to operate a certain way. We wanted the experience to be a certain way, and at the end of the day, you just need what you need. So had to get it.
Okay. Talk about some of the tech. What did you put in? What was essential?
So we have about everything. So we have scanners, we have a
What are you
face
using for
scanner
a
that we
scanner?
use. Sorry, say again.
What are you using for a scanner?
So I use the Medit 700. So
Okay. Yeah.
I'm very much I like the open source. I like to be able to tinker and do everything myself.
The independence.
Yeah,
Shocker.
independence. I don't want to be stuck.
Yeah.
So so now we have two Medit 700s. We had to buy a second one pretty fast. And
Yep.
then we have a Ray Face scanner, facial scanner that we use for our big cases, which
Okay.
is a really cool piece of tech. We have a very large field of view Ray scan CBCT because we also do airway dentistry as well. We take CBCTs on every single patient, which is a huge practice booster. We have a 5-axis mill. We have 3D printers, a Sprint Ray ecosystem. We have a
So you're
speed
doing
furnace.
like you have your own mill. Is it what are you using? You using Amon Gerbach? What's your mill?
So it's a DOF 5X. I'll give a shout out to Cadray. If anyone's ever heard of them or
Yeah,
used
great
them.
company. Yep.
Yeah, they're amazing. So like they were very essential into us getting the practice up and running how we want it. And so those guys over there are awesome. All their training support, everything's been awesome. So we have the DOF 5X, which is a 5-axis puck mill. It does pretty much everything except titanium bars. So we can do mill hybrids. We can mill our custom abutments.
What are you doing?
Cool.
You have the design center then, I'm sure then, right?
Yeah, so we have ExoCAD, and then I took
What we use ExoCAD.
yeah, ExoCAD's
Our
awesome.
problem is the ExoCAD and the Amon Gerbach mills in our lab don't communicate on the same wavelength. So that's been a little limiting.
Yes. Yeah. I'm glad there's guys behind the scenes that make those. You click the button and it goes to the mill and it works.
That's frustrating. All right.
Yeah.
So how about dentures? You doing those?
Yep. We 3D print almost all of our dentures now. I love the Onyx Tough. I have a video I show patients of me running the dentures over in my truck and throwing them 20 feet in the air and them not breaking. So it's really fun to do the denture digital design.
Yeah, what's the design? You using Blue Sky? What are you doing for design?
So we're using ExoCAD for our digital denture design. So
okay, in-house, you're doing yourself?
Yep. And I had this probably goes against conventional wisdom, but one of my good jujitsu buddies, he great guy, he great artist, taught himself how to learn guitar. So he's had all these things, and he's getting into being his upper 20s. He's like, he didn't go to college or anything, but he's a grinder. And I'm like, have you ever thought about like what you want to do long term? He's like, I'm trying to figure it out. So I hired him as my dental tech, and he has ran away with it. He's designing full arches, finishing them. And so we do trainings once a week with some high level designers. And I mean, he has just been amazing to watch his growth just go crazy.
Okay. And he's just for you, just doing all your designs, right?
Yep, just doing all our designs. And we're starting to talk about, I have a couple dental friends who we're doing like custom abutments and crowns for, because I can do them a lot cheaper than what they can source them out for.
Well, just to be able to do a custom abutment's a game changer.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
It really is, yeah. All right, so great stuff. So what does it look like in your first month of practice? When did you open, and were you on time?
Yeah, we were not on time. We pushed way back. We were probably 4 months behind schedule, I think, by the time we opened. So we opened at the very end of September, and then so October was our first full month.
All right, so you've been open 6 months.
All
right, you want to tell us how you're doing?
Yeah, things are good. So so month to date, we in the first 4 months of this year, we've already collected over $600,000. So we're doing pretty good.
4 months?
4 months. Yep. And then yeah, not too shabby. And then before the end year, we had a little over 3 months because we had a little piece of September. We collected over $300,000 for our first quarter.
So who's working with you right now? How many people on the team?
Well, so we have a pretty lean, mean team. It's me. I have one assistant who's also a hygienist, which is a godsend. And I have a hygienist, one front desk, and my lab guy. So there's 5 of us total. And we work 24 hours a week. We work Monday through Thursday. We go 8 to 2 with no lunch break.
Yeah, I'd go 7 to 1. That's my schedule. So
Yeah. If all of us didn't have kids, I would definitely do that. I'd love 7 to 1.
yeah, it's
That's
just,
awesome.
especially, but you could do, here's a thought, summer hours, 7 to 1, and then wintertime, 8 to 2,
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
you know,
That's a good idea.
or 7 to 12:30 is what you end up doing.
Yeah, that's even better. Now you're really talking.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So what an amazing journey. How did you find a team? How did you hire your team?
that was like my most stressful thing. That was what was keeping me up at night, because I was like, I have to have someone good. And like my pitch was kind of crazy to everyone. It was like, well, we're only going to work 24 hours, and but we're going to have a great bonus system. Like I swear it's going to work. So luckily I was able to poach this amazing assistant who, I mean, she's done everything. She's an assistant, was a hygienist. She worked for a guy down here who now owns 5 or 6 practices, and she was the office manager and opened up two locations. So she knows everything. So she's been a huge rock that I've leaned on this whole process of getting all, because I'm a tooth guy and a money guy, but with all the compliance and all that stuff, that's where I kind of lose interest. I need someone to pick that slack up for me. So she's been a godsend. And then my hygienist was someone who she temped at the office I worked at for a year. And so we connected. She's a super hard worker. Always kind of like me, I'm always hard on myself. Like if I see a case back and that line angle's a little off, I'm like, dang it, and has that same mentality. She's like, I always want to do better. And then our front desk, she had no dental experience. It's actually my mother-in-law, which is another kind of probably crazy thing, but I love her to death. She had been a manager at a Ford dealership, a Harley dealership. So she's just amazing with people. And I said, well, we're not going to worry about the insurance thing. We'll be fine. And so
what is your financial policy?
As far as like patients?
Yeah, I want to come see you. What do I got to expect financially?
Yep. So we do a lot of our care for preventative is we created an in-house membership plan. So it doesn't really make financial sense to not go on our in-house membership plan because you save so much money. So when someone calls, we require a $200 deposit to secure their spot. It's not refundable if they don't show up with less than 48 hours notice. If patients have treatment planned, they have to pay half of that treatment plan to get on the schedule. The other half is due in full, and we charge $500 per hour if they don't show up.
Okay.
So we have a very strict policy, and we explain it to our patients like we're not open for a long time. So yeah, and people get it. People are respective of it.
Well, you set the rules are pretty clear.
Yeah, and we tell them all up front, like this is it.
Have you had any people not show up?
We have, and when they do, most of the times if they text us, they're like, "Hey, I know I have to pay a no-show fee. That's fine." We haven't had anyone throw a stink about it because we're just laying it right out in the beginning.
How tied up is your hygiene schedule right now?
It's bad. We're in the process of outfitting another room and getting another hygienist right now.
I was just going to tell you, got to put your 4th room in as soon as possible. And
yeah,
you're going to need to buy that place next door because you're going to be at 6 rooms within a year or 2.
Yeah, it's going. So.
You will. But since it's such a different policy than what's around you, did you get a lot of pushback?
Mm-mm.
Wow.
People are, I think because most of our patients are coming, and we're getting a lot of patients now that are getting referred from other doctors, especially like a lot of functional medicine doctors, because we take a CBCT on everyone. I haven't even met 3 of these doctors that send me patients every single week because I've been so busy. So word's kind of getting out that we spend all this time. I mean, I'm in the treatment room for probably 40 minutes with each new patient, talking and going over everything. We're looking at airway, we're discussing root causes of issues, effects that bad sleep, inflammation, infection can have on our systemic health. So word's getting back to these doctors that we really care and we see the whole connection. Yeah. So yeah, so we need
guy, more. Man. I told you.
Yeah, big picture.
That's awesome. Okay, so not much pushback. That's interesting because that's a little unique model. starting from scratch, right? And the counterintuitive is like, well, just sign up on insurance plan, so they'll send you patients, right?
Right.
And your marketing, we said $1,000 a month. Have you turned that off yet?
No, not yet. We're just because everything's been kind of organic up to outside of the Facebook marketing. So there probably will be a time I pop it off, but right now it's just like, why not?
How about your website? Did you design it? Did you build it?
No, I had the same company, Crimson Media. They do an amazing job. I've been super thrilled with them. I think they've been a big reason why we've had success because a lot of people say they love our website. Gives them a lot of information before they even enter. So he helped build the website. He's who does my Google or my Facebook ads and all the marketing.
Okay. Folks, if you don't think it's possible, you are either asleep or just not paying attention, but it's possible. Look, I mean, this is such a great story. I'm going to wrap up a little bit. Now, what would you say your advice would be to anyone who's even thinking about starting their own?
I would say have your end goal in mind, big picture. You need to know what you're trying to build. I'm big on reverse engineering. So I'm like, this is what I wanted. How do I get here? How much money do I need set aside? Yeah. And it's going to take more money and more time than you think, significantly more, is another thing I would say. So I'm very big into, you got to pay your dues. So I much rather have gone the path I went and grinded an extra year or two in my associateship to be able to build my dream fully, because I don't think if I opened with only half the things I needed, that we would be able to have the same amount of success that we have now. Also, you have to invest into your team. So we do a very unique bonus structure where we have we call it a BAM, bare A minimum. And so we have that set, and then anything over that, my team takes a percentage home split amongst them. So, my team bonuses most time $1,500 to $3,000 a month. And I love that I'm succeeding and they're succeeding. They get these awesome big pay bumps. And I rather take home a little bit less so that they can have success. But I also know that they work harder because they are so invested into the success of the practice, because it's just human nature. I mean, I'm the same way. So
now, if you have what's your number that you gotta bring in every day to keep the lights on?
So we are at, it's like 40,000 right now.
A month.
For a month. Yeah. So that's not our bare minimum because we have other.
No, I got it.
Yeah. And I pay them regardless if we pay them the same amount base every single week. I pay them for 32 hours of work, even though we only work technically 24-ish. So
I will tell you one thing. The reason you started out busy from day one is because you started with the end in mind. If you started half-ass, didn't have everything, you would say, well, we'll just build the clientele slowly versus Howard Fran, the McDonald's does 90% of their full-time business in their first month open, right? Wow. It's not an accident, right? And it's really where you're at. And it's awesome to hear, because there are a lot of entrepreneur dentists that I've talked to that it's a much slower build, right? And especially in a fee-for-service world where you do want to have a little more relationship-based. So it is taking a little bit longer to kind of build those bonds and those trusts where you hit the ground running. But I think a lot of it's just a result of who you are and how you planned it.
Thanks.
So that's awesome. All right. So wrap up. Last question. You could go anywhere in time, back, any place, with anyone, talk to, do anything. Where would you go?
Oh my gosh. That's off the cuff. That's rough. Any place in time. Oh man. It's kind of probably silly, but I love my grandpa to death. He's still here and with me, but I would love to go play basketball with him when we were both young dudes, because I grew up when I was in high school, and we'd go to the YMCA, and he was 68 years old, throwing up hook shots, from the 3-point line and swishing them. And he has all these county records and stuff from back in the day. So I'd probably do that.
That's cool.
Fun. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, Chase, man, I really appreciate your time. Love the message. I'm going to put in the show notes how to reach him.
Cool.
Okay. Do you want to just give a quick blurb how they can get in touch with you, maybe your website, office location, etc.? But
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let me actually pull up my I don't even know what my Instagram is, or so my wife runs it. She does a killer job. So yeah, we're at tooth.and.company on Instagram. Our website
is ampersand, right?
Well, no, it's spelled out on Instagram.
Right.
And also you can't have an ampersand on a web address that we found out as well. So, and then our web address is tooth, all spelled out, toothandcofairhope.com. And you can find us there as well.
All right, folks. Dr. Chase Williams, going to watch him. He's going to be a mover and shaker. And if you are unsure what to do, talk to Dr. Chase. He knows exactly.
I'm always happy to help.
And you know exactly your path. So I just love it, man. This is inspiring as all hell. So I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on.
Well, thanks, Sonny. I appreciate it, man. You have a good rest of your day. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Fee-for-Service Dentist Podcast. If you would like to share your fee-for-service story, please fill out our contact form at ffsdentistry.com. Also, be sure to join our Fee-for-Service Dentistry Facebook group. For help starting your dental membership plan, visit dentalmembershipdirect.com and membershipmastercourse.com. Finally, for help with in-house financing, visit dentalfinancingdirect.com. And don't forget, your story is what you make of it. This is your name on the door and your reputation on the line. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.